Hi, Nick Collier here, and this is my shop. Come join me. We'll have some fun. Nick Collier here, and I'm kind of in between projects right at the moment, which is great because I get to work on my own stuff. And I came up with this great idea this morning about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm laying there and going, whoa, this is a great idea, because this is a tubing bender, not a bender, but a roller, and it will roll the tubing to whatever diameter you're looking for. And I'm going to give you a picture of that right now. So let's just ace this out. Okay, you can see in the background, behind all that junk, you can see this arch. And that's a full circle. It goes completely around. And that kind of bender bent that. And that's a pretty thick wall stuff. I think it was 60 thousandths wall or something like that. Pretty heavy duty. This particular bender won't do that. Hang on, we'll come back. So this particular bender won't bend or won't roll that heavy a material. Well, it might, but it's probably taken it to its extreme. This is a Harbor Freight special here. I don't know what I paid for it. 75, 175, something like that. Pretty cheap for what it does. And it will bend thinner wall material. 91 thousandths wall works really well. Boy, we got some mosquitoes in here today. But when you roll it through, you're like, having to roll this thing and fight it and use a lot of muscle power. And who wants to use muscle power? So I thought last night, and it was probably, 10 years ago, I bought this wheel at a garage sale. An old gear wheel. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, that thing will fit. And so what an interesting concept to take something like this, put a motor on it, build a wheel for it, a small geared wheel for it, and hook it up to a motor. And then I've got something that's, plus this shaft here, you know how Harbor Freight is. They've got the concept, they got everything really well done, but they cheap out on all of the critical stuff. So you got to go back in and rebuild the whole damn thing. So, and that's pretty much the case for this. I'm gonna have to come back in. They used cold roll steel, hello, and they set it up so that it would just kind of strip out. So we got to come back in and rebuild the shaft. And while we're rebuilding the shaft, we set it up so that it fits the gear, the big gear. And then we can build a motor that will go underneath this and drive this thing. So that's going to be a fun project. This is going to be one of those things where it's going to take a long time, but you're right here, and there could be, between frames, there could be a month, but also between frames, it could be 2 seconds. I'll be back. Okay, so we've got our plug, and I'm not sure what the material is, but it is hard material. And we're going to bring the diameter down to 3.170. And let's just turn this on and see if we can cut it. I'm just going to do it by hand. Oh yeah, it's cutting nicely. And all we're doing here is just hogging off some material, not really trying to be accurate. Once we get a hole drilled and put this on a pivot, then we'll go ahead and do an accurate center. Okay, so we've got 3.400. So we got a ways to go here. Yeah, this thing is not going easy. We'll get some oil on it. It was happy for one cut. That's all I got out of it. And I think what we have to do is resharpen our bit. Yep, just wore that bit right down. Can you see that? Now that's a high-speed bit, so that's, you know, it's going to tend to wear under this kind of conditions. But one would think it would last a little bit longer than one cut. We're going to drop this one in here. And this is a Rex bit. So they tend to have a little bit more beef to them. But let's test it and see that we're okay height-wise. I'd say that's pretty good. All right, we'll give her another try. It seems to want to cut better. Nope. There it went. Just chewed it up. All right, we got ourselves a carbide bit in here. We got this thing in a lot closer. Let's see how it's going to do. And I think I'm going to do it automatic too. Ready? Keep your fingers crossed. Look at that. Just chewing it up. My God, that is some hard-ass metal. All right, so we just got rid of that piece of steel. I don't know what it is, but it's some hard-ass stuff. I'm working with a much more milder piece of steel here. Yes, the teeth of the gears are not going to hold up as long. You know, probably only 60 years. I mean 30 years instead of 60 years. But, you know, will I be here 30 years from now? Well, okay, fine. Somebody else will have to rebuild the damn thing. For right now, we're using a milder piece of steel that's cutting real nice. And we're going to take this down to 3.170. And that'll be good. We're probably getting a little bit close. Let's just take a measurement and see. Well, we got another 1/4 inch at least. All right, so we're a little under 3,200. We're at 385, so we're about 15 thousandths heavy on our size. Oh, let me face this off here. We're going to punch a hole in this eventually, but for now, let's just square things up. So we got a sharp edge there. Let's take that off. We've got our basic diameter. Now we have to wait for the gear reduction transmission to show up, so we can hook this, so we can know exactly what size we need to make this in order to be able to connect it to the gear reduction transmission. So now we just banged it and dented it and everything else that you can do to it. But we're still in the rough stage, so it's not that important. So eventually we're going to come in and cut however many threads. I can't remember how many there were, or I mean not threads, but gear teeth around the perimeter of this that will fit the larger gear. So we'll be back sometime soon. Okay, so we've got our hole drilled, and now we're going to come back in and just bore that hole out to some general size so we can make a shaft so that we can get a perfect center on this outside surface. So let's go ahead and we're just going to run this in by hand. Well, maybe not by hand, because it's going to be more of a pain in the ass than I expect. All right, there's our stop. Okay, let's kick it into gear. So we're sitting right at 525, and that probably is good enough for the moment. What I noticed was that this surface was just a little bit out, so I'm going to bring that surface in a little bit. Well, actually, you know what? I can do it once we drive the pin in. All right, let's take the boring head out, and we're going to take our gear out, and I'm thinking we're going to want to turn these around. Well, they don't turn around, you have to replace them. Okay, number 3. We're looking for number 3, there it is. And number 2 and number 1. There we go. So now let's go find ourselves a little something a little bit bigger than a 1/2 inch shaft, and I'll be back. Okay, so on this shaft, we're going to want to go center to center. It looks like I already got a center hole started there, so I want to recut that center hole, just make sure it is what it is. Well, it was a center hole, but it wasn't quite deep enough, so we need to get that taper in there. There we go. Nice solid taper. Yeah, let's flip it around to the other side and do the same thing. All right, looks pretty good. We got them in both sides. Now what we need to do is set a center up for this, and I think I'll go and take that off of my big lathe. Well, fact is the big lathe one is too big. Well, maybe not. It might fit. Well, that isn't square. So this isn't going to work. We'll trim this out later on the big lathe, but right now it's fairly early in the morning and I want to be reasonably quiet for my neighbors, so we're going to use the little soft bend here. Now, I'll be back. I'm going to go find myself a cone. Well, hell, we're going to have to make one because I didn't have one laying around. So that's not too difficult. We'll go ahead and, oh, I got to crank in the, we want to create a shoulder first. All right, let's slip the tool back in, and since we know that our center line is somewhere right in there, we'll just go ahead and reset it to that. Now, let's just do another, oh, I don't know, 10 just to make it smooth. And that's a good start. Perfect. Okay, now comes the hard part. We're going to have to cut a 60-degree angle right there, and that's gonna take a little while. So okay, we got her done, and I don't know, I fast forwarded it for you, but I probably got 45 minutes into doing this. But the other side of it is that now I have a cone and ready to go, and all I have to do is chuck it up and resurface that, and I can slip it in. So in, 5 minutes, and this much extra material, that's going to take me through the next 20 years without a problem. So we're going to leave that plugged in. We're going to put our floating center in the back side here. Slide our center in there. And we need to put a dog on there, a leg dog on there, and I think I got one with an extra long. All right, we're going to have to build ourselves a dog. So, no problem. We'll be back. Okay, so we got the dog in place and we're all set to go. And all we need to do here is turn this down to a little bit bigger than ½ inch. And we're set to go. I guess we better kick it into gear. And get it started back here. Okay, so we're a perfect slip fit, but not a good tight fit. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and throw some threads on this and come back in with a nut and tighten the whole thing up with a nut. So we need to go down another 25, I believe. Let me see where our line is. Okay, let's mark it. Down to a ½ inch. Okay, so we've got ourselves squared up. I don't know if you can see the nut back there, but that's got this thing tightened up on the shaft. Let's crank it up and see how far off this surface is, and it looks like it's pretty far out there. Let's go ahead and square that up as much as we can. Just taking about 10 thousandths per cut, just because it wants to be, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on this. I mean, it is tightened down, but last thing I want it to do is jump around a bit. Well, Nick Collier here, and it's another day, and it's a beauty. So we're going to continue with this gear cutting process, and I've trammed the head of the Bridgeport in, and we got that all set, and I've trammed in the vertical of the dividing head. Now I need to tram in the horizontal. Okay, now let's just swing her back and see how much we're off. Looks like about, oh, I don't know, 20 maybe. So let's just wang this a little bit. Now we're about 15. Two or three or four. Okay, two or three, a little bit more. All right, there it is. Maybe we're a thou off. Okay, let's just give it a quick look and make sure. All right, well, we're 2, but that's good enough. We're not going to get a perfect center off of this, but at the same time, we'll get as much of a center as we can, as concentric as we can with the outside diameter. And then when we come back in, and we still don't know what our shaft size is, because that's still on the way. Later when we come in, we'll put this on a 4-jaw and dial it in, and then bore our hole to the correct size. For now, we can just kind of wing it, and everything should work out just fine.